There's no room in the market for mediocrity. Like, you have to be good in today's market if you want to really succeed. Now, long term, sure, you buy any real estate, you could like half do it and you're probably still gonna be fine because real estate's just that cool. But if you wanna get out of your job quick, if you wanna build wealth quick, if you wanna have that free time with your family, travel the world, spend your days sleeping in and going to the gym, you want the better life, it's gonna take something more than mediocrity. You have to be better than most. This is the Better Life Podcast, where we talk about real estate investing, building wealth, and all in all living a better life. My name is Brendan Turner, and I've spent my life investing in real estate to achieve financial freedom. And alongside my co-host, Mr. Cam Cathcart, we want to help you do the same. On the show, you're going to hear from world-class guests who have been handpicked to help you level up your investing, your leadership, your goals, your habits, and more to become the very best version of yourself. So join us as we explore the habits, the actions, the beliefs that it takes to build wealth through real estate investing without losing your soul. This episode is brought to you by our friends at TurboTenant and Ballpoint Marketing. These two companies are big supporters of the show, and they know how to work with real estate investors and help real estate investors grow their businesses. So be sure to stay tuned to hear how you can get discounts and free stuff from them both. And as you probably know, all the profits from this show go to charities of the guest choosing. So when you listen to the sponsors on the show and you work with these hand-chosen by me sponsors, you're actually doing good for the world. Now let's get to the show. Hey everybody, thank you for coming to the Q&A today. We're gonna talk about real estate investing, life, whatever else. I got here my buddy Cam Cathcart. What's up, Cam?
What's up, man?
Oh, I don't have a joke ready. I should have a joke ready.
Okay.
Did you have one?
What do you call cheese that isn't yours? I've said this
Nacho
before.
cheese.
Come on, man.
That's pretty good. Actually, I like that one.
Okay. What do you get when you mix an elephant and a rhino?
Elefino. I know all your jokes, man. Oh, we're too close. This is bad. Cam and I start every podcast now. I don't know if they've started coming out from when we started this trend, but every podcast from now on, we start with a dad joke. It's pretty great. I just Google them right before the show. That's actually like my favorite part of the podcast. It's a dad joke.
Dad joke.
All right.
Of the show.
Well, everybody, what we're going to be doing today is doing some question and answer time with Mr. Cam Cathcart, Brendan Turner, and all of you. So I want to start with a disclaimer. We are not experts at everything. All of us are smarter than any of us. I love that phrase. All of us are smarter than any of us. So if you have something, if you're on this Q&A right now live, if you're not watching this in the future, if you're on live and you're like, oh, I know the answer to that, just pop it in the chat area. Be like, oh yeah, I've dealt with this before. Or if you really want to, just unmute yourself and be like, hey, I can take this one. I know this one really well. I mean, I don't want this a full 100 people free for all yelling at each other. But if you know something more than we do, please do. All of us are smarter than any of us. And please don't take this as legal or tax advice. Cam and I are just Muppets up here, just having fun. So don't sue me, bro. If I tell you something and then you do it. Caleb said, feel free to use a Q&A Zoom feature at the bottom of your screen. Is that a thing here? I don't even see it, but and what the heck is that? Whoa, how am I don't know what this means. Following paused? I have no idea what just happened. I closed it. Did you guys see that too? The white screen just popped up for everybody? Yeah, that was weird. Huh, strange. Whatever. All right. With that said, let's go some questions. Let's start with a few that are in the chat area real quick. And we'll go there. Let's start with the first one here. I'm gonna actually throw this one probably at you, Cam.
Yeah.
Akshay said, hey, Brandon and Cam, when evaluating an off-market deal, what is the best way to determine an accurate price? Given that there's no listed price or MLS comps, how do you approach valuation to ensure you're not overpaying? Like tools, strategies, local experts you rely on to get the market value.
Yeah, I would love to dive into that because that is one of my expertises.
Yeah, that's your thing.
But real quick, when you say that there are no MLS comps, does that mean that this is in a rural area, or what do you mean by that? And you can just unmute yourself, and I'd love to have a dialogue with you, Akshay.
Maybe no access to MLS comps. Oh, they are.
Oh.
Yeah, I had my baby next to me.
I love it. How old's your baby? Wait, how old's your baby? That's the more important thing here.
6 months old.
Oh,
amazing.
So good. Anyway, very cool. Yeah, give us some more context on your question. Feel free.
Because when I run on the model, Excel sheet and stuff, I want as accurate as I could get.
Mm-hmm.
So I have access to PropStream, but they give evaluated value, but not the actual value that it eventually would be. So is there a way to get the
oh yeah, dude, that what PropStream tells you it's worth is a bold-faced lie. That it's not even close. Don't use the Zestimate. Don't use any of that. So when you're running comps on a property, when it's a single family house, what we're doing is we are going within a quarter of a mile radius. And there's first of all, let me say this. When I see people lose money in real estate, it's typically not because they've gone over budget in rehab, even though that happens. That's marginal, maybe $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 over. You should have more than that worked into your profit. So if you go over budget, you're not losing money. But I see people miss it when they're running an ARV on a house by 50 to 100 grand sometimes. And so you have to get so dialed in on your area. You have to know your area is like the back of your hand. For instance, in St. Louis, if you buy in the Lindbergh School District, it's worth $100,000 more than the Afton School District or the Melville School District, which is literally just right across the street. And if you don't know that, if you're an out-of-state investor and you're buying in St. Louis, you could pull comps and be like, this is this priced house, and you're wrong because you're in the Afton School District or Melville School District and not the Lindbergh School District. So you have to know everything like the back of your hands. But when you're running comps, real quick, go over an overview. You're looking at your house. We're finding 3 like comps within a quarter mile of a radius sold in the last 365 days. When I say like comps, that means that it has to be like your house. If your house is a 3-2 brick ranch, you are looking for 3-2 brick ranches to match that up with. If your house has a garage, you are looking at houses with garages. Garages add a ton of value. If your house is on a slab, you're looking at other slabs. You're not looking at houses with basements. You're looking at the same school district. You're looking same neighborhood, same zip code. Like you want to find exact matches of your house, and that is going to be your ARV. And so Zestimate or PropStream, they're going to throw something out there at you saying, hey, your value is worth this. I find that most of the time that is way, way off. You cannot trust that. And then if you want to get really dialed in on that, like you're looking at like what is the level of rehab? So if you have 3 comps, typically a lot of these neighborhoods, they are tract homes where it's the same builder. There's 3 styles of houses. There's a ranch type. There's a small, a 1,200, 1,800 square foot, and there's like a 2-story house, whatever. So you can typically find comps in that area. But you just want to, you want to, the biggest thing that I could say, and I could talk about this for the next hour. So I'm trying to you need 3 houses that look like your house, that are in the same school district, same zip code, same size, same square footage. And then you're going to take those, and that is going to be the ARV of your property. And then you're going to work your way backwards of, hey, I'm going to be at 75% minus repairs or whatever that.
Let me ask a clarifying question on that. Let's say specifically you want access to comps from a real estate agent. How would you approach an agent? If you're a newer investor, how would you approach an agent to get them to just give you comps?
Yes, that's a great question. So PropStream and Zillow are not the way to run comps. The best way, far and away, is via the MLS. The MLS is going to be the most accurate data, the most up-to-date data. You only have access to the MLS 2 ways. 1, 3 ways actually. 1, you are a real estate agent. 2, you can get a real estate agent to give you their login info, which is highly illegal. Don't do that. But I mean, what are they going to do? Yeah, people do it all the time.
People do it all the time. Don't do it.
And then the third way is you can become an assistant.
I've never done it, by the way.
You've never done it?
Never done it. Never got a login for an MLS.
I have been, I can't say the same. The third way is you can become an assistant for a real estate agent. And so this is actually my favorite way to teach people to get MLS access. Let's say Brandon's an agent. I'm one of his friends. We talk all the time. I say, hey, Brandon, I'm looking at properties for myself, and I would love MLS access. Can I become an assistant on your profile? I'll help you run comps. You're out with clients. You're trying to find out what the value of a house is that you're walking, or you're trying to pull a CMA. Like I'm going to help you do that. But then also I can use it to run my own comps. You do have to be an assistant. You sign something saying that you are actually doing work for that agent. I know a lot of people that get assistant access and don't really do a lot of work for the agent, but I think that you should, just because it's the legal, moral, ethical thing to do. But everybody can get an assistant license. If you're just trying to get with an agent to give you the comps on a house, the best way is going to be using them on the back end whenever you flip the house. But you have to be so careful there, because the agents want the listing. They're going to tell you the house is worth more than it probably is. So you still want to be doing your own due diligence. You don't want to just blindly trust an agent to run the ARV or the comps on the house. I think that agents actually a lot of times are really bad at pulling comps. I think that investors especially when you do it in volume, are so much better at running the value of a house. And so I would actually suggest, if you don't have MLS access, instead of reaching out to an agent, reaching out to another investor that does high volume in that area. Promise you they will be better at running comps than the agent is.
All right, man. Good
Sorry,
answer.
that was a long answer,
That's right.
but
That's good because that's important. Like understanding what a property's worth matters for flipping, matters for the BRRRR strategy, matters for like all of that stuff. The long-term success of your investment matters. So yeah, nailing that, super important. Thank you for your question. Moving on. I love this one. Jake Thornton. I really want to get into multifamily, like small apartment buildings, 8 to 16 units, and I really don't know the first steps. What would you do if you were just starting out? Great question, Jake. So I love multifamily. I will flat out say, first of all, mid-sized multifamily, which is what I call that, anywhere like, whatever, call it 5 to 50 units, is one of the hardest asset classes, but it's one of the most rewarding in terms of you can really get some good cash flow, but it's hard. So just first step is understand it is going to be hard. That's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's not a bad thing. You just gear up. Like it's going to be hard. You're going to have to learn how to manage that. There's a lot of reasons why it's hard, but the primary reason is because there's no good management at that level. There's just no good management out there at that level. You can get good single family management. You can get good large multifamily management. It's hard. So understand that. Secondly, I think with multifamily in that range, people don't understand how to analyze deals. So I would probably first step there, or maybe call it step 2, is I would really sink into the analysis of it and just do one after another, after another, after another. Just pull up the MLS, look for some properties, run the numbers. Every time you do it, you're going to be like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. And you try and you do it again. Maybe even a prior step then would be to plug my own book, The Multifamily Millionaire, Volume 1.
It's a great book, by the way.
Thanks, man. I have Volume 1 and Volume 2. I wrote it with Brian Murray, my co-founder of Open Door Capital. 2 is more about like big deals, like the larger multifamily. But if you want smaller mid, read The Multifamily Millionaire. Especially I have a chapter on there on how to estimate repairs and another chapter on how to estimate capital expenditures. You've got to nail that. That's what will sink your investment. Is CapEx and repairs, almost more than anything else. That's what people misunderstand. They misrepresent. They don't understand what it actually costs to own a rental property. Everybody can figure out the taxes for the most part. You can figure out insurance. Figuring out what it actually costs to hold on to a property, CapEx, has killed me many times and it'll kill you. So I would really study that a lot. Next step, I'd find a mid-sized multifamily investor to go work for. And I don't mean like full-time job, but like, take over their management. Like just go and help them manage their properties for a little while and do it for free if you have to. Like that's literally how I started. My buddy Kyle was a real estate investor in my area. I wanted to learn from him. So I just managed he had a bunch of 6plexes. He had like 3 or 4 of them and plus some 4plexes and whatever. I just took over management on all of them. I charged him almost nothing. I mean, I was making $5 an hour at best for the amount of work I was doing. I was doing maintenance for him. I didn't care. I just wanted to learn from him and how these multifamilies worked. And that's how I learned how to analyze these mid-sized multifamilies. So yeah, that's what I would do.
Yeah, and one thing I would say to that is just please, guys, remember that your mortgage or rent minus your mortgage is not your cash flow. Yeah. I can speak from experience. Like we're typically spending about 45% of rent on taxes, maintenance, CapEx, property management, vacancy. And so like if I'm renting a house for $2,000 a month, 900 of that is going towards expenses. Yep. And so I see people all the time. They're like, yeah, my mortgage is $1,400 and I rent for $2,000 a month. I'm cash flowing $600. No, you're losing money. Yep. You just aren't operating it well. You are losing money. And over maybe 1 month, you didn't lose money because there was no maintenance issues or whatnot, or CapEx or vacancy, but those will stack up eventually. So please, please, please make sure that you are including all of those into your numbers and you're not just looking at mortgage versus what it can rent at.
Yeah, that's great. All right, moving on. I got a really quick question here. That'll be a quick one to answer. Justin said, if traditional banks don't typically give loans on distressed properties, what's the likelihood of getting a 203K loan for a property in distress? Are they only for light rehab? So let me talk real quick about the 203K loan. It is one of my favorite loan products in the world. The 203K program is part of the FHA loan program. FHA is famous for like house hacking, right? You have to live in the property for a year, but it's only 3.5% down. The 203K allows you to wrap in repair costs into your FHA loan. It is phenomenal. And so, for example, you buy a $300,000 duplex. Yeah, you can do small multi with this. $300,000 duplex, it needs $100,000 worth of work. That is now, you have $400,000 into it, but it's gonna be worth $5 when you're done, let's just say. Well, they'll take that full $400,000 and you just pay 3.5% of that. Now, there's a lot of red tape, a lot of garbage you have to go through, a lot of, it's annoying. It's a government program, so whatever. It takes some effort, but it works. And to answer your question, Justin, it is not just for light rehabs. You can do it on pretty major rehabs. You can do it, I believe, even on ADUs, though I could be wrong. Do you know that one?
I have never used a 203K loan before.
Yeah. I think you can do it on ADUs. Anyway,
no idea.
I love that one. Next question. I love this one. Again, we could spend an hour on just this topic. We're going to do it in 2 minutes. Fabio, how do you decide your strategy and what market? So I have a program. Many of you are in it, and some of you are not, but it's called First Deal, firstdeal.com. We teach new investors how to get their first deal. And in there, the very first step that we walk people through, I have a thing called the 4D framework. You can write this down if you want. But the first D is decision. You've got the biggest thing that holds people back is decision. After that, of course, it's deal flow, it's dollars, and it's disciplines, like the work you do. But let's just focus on decision. That is the number one thing that holds people back, especially newbies, is they just simply have not decided what to do. The same exact principle applies for dieting, right? Like diets work. We all know them. We all can name 10 diets. We can all find scientific.
16 pounds.
16
baby.
pounds? Dude, what are you doing for a diet?
I'm not eating sugar.
Okay.
I am only drinking twice a week.
I thought it was once a week.
That might have changed.
Okay. So 16 pounds. That's great because it works, right? Yeah. But here's what happens. People don't decide what their food is going to be, what their intake, what their diet, what they want to do, and therefore they never lose the weight. But once you decide and commit, everything changes. So let's go back to real estate. How do you decide your strategy? One of my all-time favorite quotes, I live by this quote. It is more important that you decide than what you decide.
100%.
More important that you decide than what you decide. Now, there are stupid decisions to be made. Like, I'm going to go do Airbnb in an area that's illegal. Okay, don't do that. But generally speaking, all the diets work and all the real estate strategies you know of, they all work. They all work. Everything works. There's some question on how do they work, of course. Like if you're like, oh, do I do midterm rentals? Yeah, they work. Do I do short-term rentals? Yeah, they work. Then once you decide, then you can ask the question, okay, now how do I make it work? And then that leads to the second half of your question, Fabio, which is what market? Okay, well, if you decide I want to do, let's call it Pad Split. Pad Split is a company that does like the rent by room. I'm a huge fan of it. I just bought 2 of them in the past month. Where you just take your house, turn it into a bunch of bedrooms, rent them all individually. Pad Split's a company that does it. And if you sign up, by the way, this is just a quick plug, but it doesn't hurt you at all. It just helps me and supports the podcast. If you end up getting a Pad Split, let them know that I sent you. There's a little drop down and you save money. I don't remember what it is, but there's some like discount thing you get for doing so. And it doesn't cost you anything more. Anyway, Pad Split, I love them. It's like, let's say you decide I'm going to do a Pad Split. Okay, well, what makes a good rent by the room? Well, I've decided I'm going to do it. So I need a market where, for example, all the bedrooms, where a bedroom will rent for high enough to make it worth it. Okay, well, what does that mean? And I watch a webinar or a podcast on Pad Split. And then I talk to a couple Pad Split investors and I find out, oh, you really want to go in areas where a studio apartment is at least $1,200 a month. Oh, okay. Well, now I know that. Well, ChatGPT, can you tell me 20 markets where, you can get where a studio apartment is $1,200 a month or more? Hey, here we go. Hey, it looks like in this zip code of Houston, the average studio is $1,400 a month. I bet you people will pay $800 to live in a bedroom. That's the market I'm going to choose. So in other words, once you decide, now you can ask how. But you can't ask how first, which is what most people do, is they sit there and go, well, how would I do that? I don't think that's possible. I don't know what to do here. Decide, commit, then plan, and you're going to get there. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It all works. It all works. And I can find an example of a multimillionaire in every single strategy you can think of that's doing it in today's market, but it doesn't work everywhere. So that's why you start with decide, then you commit to it, and then you figure out the way to do it. Yeah. What do you want to add to that? Anything?
I will add this. I'm a single family guy, flip rentals. That's my expertise. And about 6 months into this whole real estate journey back in 2020, I went to a conference. And honestly, I was listening to guys like Brandon who was like, oh, I'm buying a mobile home park. Or I was talking to guys that were developing new land. And I was like, well, I want to do other things too. I don't want to just be a single family guy. And the speaker, he posed this question, and I'll never forget this because it literally formed how I invest in real estate. He said, what's the hardest thing about real estate? And, somebody in the crowd yelled out like finding deals. And he said, yeah, that's hard, but it's not the hardest thing. Somebody else yelled out finding capital to fund those deals. And he's like, that's hard, but that's not the hardest thing. Somebody else yelled out like, project management. He's like, yeah, that's hard. That's not the hardest thing. And then he looked at the crowd and he said, the hardest thing about real estate are there's too many ways to make a lot of money. And the problem that we get into is we have shiny object syndrome. If you're on this, you're an entrepreneur, you have shiny object syndrome, and you see somebody like Brandon that's crushing it in multifamily. You see somebody like me that's crushing it flipping houses. You see somebody that's crushing it in mobile home parks or new development. And you're like, I want to do that. I want to do that. And don't do that. Like, pick one thing. Like, it's more important that you decide than what you decide, because they can all make you a lot of money, but pick one thing and be the best in the world at that thing. Because if you try and dip your toes into the single family space in St. Louis, you're going to lose. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but there's guys that are doing that 60 hours a week that have teams built around that. You're not going to be successful. The way that you're successful is you pick one thing and you become the best in the world at that one thing. And so for a person to ask that question, like, dude, pick a strategy and pick a market and then put 100% of your effort into that, and you can't not lose.
Yeah.
You can't not lose. Yeah, you can't not win. You can't not lose.
You can't not lose.
Double negative right there.
Yeah, you can write this down. There's no room in the market for mediocrity. I like that quote. I don't know who said it. It was probably somebody smart. But like, there's no room in the market for mediocrity. Like, you have to be good in today's market if you want to really succeed. Now, long term, sure, you buy any real estate, you could like half do it and you're probably still going to be fine because real estate's just that cool. But if you want to get out of your job quick, if you want to build wealth quick, if you want to have that free time with your family, travel the world, spend your days sleeping in and going to the gym, you want the better life, it's going to take something more than mediocrity. You have to be better than most. And the cool thing is, though, the bar is fairly low for that. Like, who's it? I was having a conversation. I think it was on the podcast yesterday. We were doing a podcast with a gentleman, and he's like, yeah, I have this great idea for blah, blah, blah. Like, he just like said his idea for a TV show. And he's like, I'm not afraid of telling everyone my idea because no one's going to do it. No one's going to do it. No one does anything. He's like, the bar is so low for people doing things. The same thing is true. For example, like hundreds of people have signed up for a first deal. How many people show up to a weekly call? 50? Yeah. Like thousands of people have signed up for Better Life. How many show up to one of our wealth workshops? 100? It's wild. It's wild how few people do anything. And I understand people are busy and they watch the replay, so I don't want to rip on everybody. But the vast majority of people, how many people did Bigger Pockets have as pro memberships? Just tens of thousands.
I still have one and I haven't been on since 2019. So
yeah, they got a good model. We built something cool over there. Yeah. Anyway, all right, we got to move on. But I want to go to a more advanced question real quick here, and then Tony asked, when raising capital, this applies to everybody, but especially for people doing big stuff. When raising capital for mid to large multifamily apartments, when would you want to do a syndication versus something like a real estate fund? Let me explain the difference. So a fund is likely still a syndication. So for semantic reasons, I can say that. The way that I know what you're asking, because this is the words I use as well. When I say syndication, I typically am referring to a single asset deal. And when I say a fund, I'm referring to a multi-asset deal. They're both syndications, but a fund means multiple deals in one thing. So here's how I've done it. So I like funds, by the way, way better. We've done a few single assets. I will choose a fund all day long if I can, because it reduces the risk, right? You spread the risk across 3, 4, 5 properties. And so that's really, really nice on the fund level. That said, it is easier to raise for a single asset. I don't know why, just people's head gets wrapped around a single thing. It's just easier to say, we're buying this apartment. It's 123 Main Street. Here's the pictures of it. It's simple to understand. And people are like, oh yeah, I'll invest in that. Versus like, so we're going to buy 5 properties. We don't have them yet. They're going to be great. Trust me. That gets complicated. If you have all 5 already under contract, you're ready to close on them, then maybe the scales are even there. But with a fund, you almost never do have that. And then you get in some weird things of like, well, you're raising capital for deals you don't have yet. So then what do you do with that money? You can't really pay on it because you're not making anything. So now the money's like sitting in waiting, where you're going to like call it from the investors later, but then they might change their mind. Yeah. So there is no right or wrong way there. We've done both. But that's just how I view it is I want to do a fund in almost every case, unless the deal is so big that a fund would just be silly. Like when we bought our $80 million Heights on Katy, it was $72 million plus rehab and all that. It's like $80 million. Like, yeah, we did that on a single asset. Like, what am I going to do? A $400 million fund? Like, that was a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, what I love about a fund, which I have never done a syndicate. Well, I guess it is, but
Yeah,
a
you got a
fund for
fund, yeah.
single family,
Yeah.
But I have full discretion over. Hey, if a property matches this criteria, I'm able to buy it. And so, obviously, in the single family space, you're not doing a syndication on every single house. It's just, hey, I've raised $7 million, and
Yep.
anything that comes across my table that matches this criteria, I get to buy. Yeah,
Cool, man.
So.
All right, let's go back to the analysis talk a little bit because that's one of my favorite things. Nicholas said, I've analyzed a small multifamily a few times now. The numbers for cash flow and cash on cash return feel almost too good to be true. It is an MLS property. I've used Redfin's calculator for the mortgage estimate and taxes, as well as Zillow mortgage calculator. Who else would you suggest to have analyze this deal to confirm it works in the numbers? I'm slightly second guessing myself. So first thing I would suggest is if you're not using the Better Life or First Deal, we offer it in both groups and in the 50. We have a calculator called the Pure Cash Flow Calculator. I would recommend that. You can get it inside the Better Life backend or on the First Deal backend. You can get it either place. If you can't find it, just reach out to me or our support teams. It's really good. We have a bunch of calculators. We have 10 different calculators. But the rental one is really, really good, the Pure Cash Flow one. And it's going to make you see that there's a lot of expenses that you're probably not accounting for. If you run it through that thing and it still makes sense, it's either one of two things. It is what it is, or your numbers are wrong, right? Like math doesn't lie. The only thing that lies is us in our assumptions. So a few things to consider on the deal analysis. Number one, I mentioned it earlier, CapEx, repairs, vacancy. Those three things make up between, I would say, 15 to 30% of your income. Like if you're getting $1,000 a month, I would set aside between 150 and 300 of that just for those three items. That's not even counting the fact that you have your mortgage, you have your taxes, you have your insurance. You're going to have utilities, all that. So make sure you're accounting for the repairs, the capital expenditures, and the vacancy. And you're being conservative on that. Make sure your taxes are in line with what the future taxes are going to be, not with what the past taxes were. Sometimes it's the same. It's usually a little bit higher. Sometimes it's drastically higher. There are some areas where when you buy a property, they re-tax you based on the price you paid for it. It's not all areas, but some do that. So your taxes could literally double or triple if that property hasn't sold in 20 years. And you're thinking it's $1,000 a month and really it's $3,000 a month. You're like, oh shoot, there goes all my cash flow. Huge rookie mistake. People make it all the time. So the question of who would you suggest analyze the deal to confirm they work in the numbers? A local real estate investor who does it. Mm-hmm. Really, literally just I mentioned my buddy Kyle earlier, the Island Real Estate from. I would just go to him and be like, hey, this is what I'm looking at. And just, that's what's nice about the Pure Cash Flow Calculator too that we give out is it's very easy to see. You can give it to somebody who has never seen that spreadsheet before. And it's so box one, box two, here we go, that they can look at it and be like, oh yeah, here's where your numbers are off. It looks like you did. I see this mistake all the time, and then we can move on to the next one. But I see the mistake where people make, what's the word, like clerical errors, and that's what actually hurts it. So, for example, they do a monthly number where it should be annual, or annual number where it should be monthly. I see that mistake a lot, and I see just flat out, oh, I just forgot to include the mortgage, stuff like that. So, double check all of that for sure. If you're in the First Deal program, we have advisors. And so you can literally get on a call with an advisor. You get 2 hours every quarter, jump on the call with an advisor, show them your numbers, share your screen and be like, this is what I'm looking at, and let them give you real-time feedback. That's why we have advisors and what they're good for. They're good for a lot of stuff, but that's one thing they're really good for is just to help you look over that stuff.
And I have two thoughts on this. The first thought is Chat GPT. You can upload all of that, and dude, it's super accurate. So you can upload all the numbers that you got from the agent that's listed it, and it'll spit out some thoughts. And obviously you have to coach it and prompt it the right way. But the second thing though that I would say, and I don't want to be a pessimist here, but I think it's important for everybody on this call, is if it's on market, you're probably missing something, and it has numbers that are too good to be true.
Nothing is too good to be true in today's market.
Yes. I have not bought something on market. I've bought things from agents, but they're usually pocket listings or withheld. I have not bought something on market in years, and the reason for that is everybody else is seeing that. People are probably willing to pay more than you are. The only way that things work on market, in my opinion, is if you have a strategy behind it that nobody else is going to do.
Like the pad split I just bought. I bought that on market. It was $435 they were asking. I offered them $400. We settled at $410. That'll make sense because I'm getting $800 a bedroom and I got 10 bedrooms. I'm bringing in $8,000 a month. That thing's going to cash flow like an ATM machine. But that's because I'm doing a weird fringe strategy that's going to be really hell to manage. And so like, that's my hard.
Yeah,
but that's how that works on MLS.
And that's how, like, I have a buddy who just bought a 14 unit and he converted 10 of them into short-term rentals because it's close to a hospital and he's crushing it. But if you're just looking at, hey, if this is a long-term rental option, it's on the market, it's probably not a good deal. Again, I don't want to be a pessimist. There definitely are things out there that are good deals, but probably not. Enough people have seen it. Like your buyer pool is this big. When it's off market, it's this big. So you're not competing with as many people and can find better deals.
Awesome, man. All right, I love this question. This applies to a lot of people. We're talking about raising money when you're investing when you have little of it. The question comes from Marvin, and I just got into real estate investing. My niche is new construction and single family niche. New construction, single family, and small multifamily homes like duplexes. So I'm going to pause there for a second and just tell everyone, even if that's not your strategy, it's okay. I'm going to talk about the principle here. So we'll come back to that. So Marvin wants to do new construction, single family, and multifamily. I love that. Build to rent is what we typically call that. I love that strategy right now. It's one of my 20 fringe strategies in that book I wrote called, like, a lot of you don't even know about this, but I have an ebook out there. It's called Cash Flow Isn't Dead, 20 strategies that print money in 2025 or something like that. Anyway, that's one of them. It's built to rent. I love it.
Cash Flow in Debt? Is that the title of the book?
It's not that. It's called It's called Cash Flow Isn't Dead, I think is what we're calling it right now. I changed the name. And it's not like you can't buy it on Amazon. It's literally a giveaway. I'll have my team probably throw it in the chat area. Oh, somebody put it right there. I think right there, Michelle did. So yeah, check it out if you want. It's one of my, it was like a lead gen. I give it away to people so that they join our email list and then I can hound them and spam them for the next 20 years. But anyway, so let me finish that question if I can find it in here. I know. Okay, here it is. Is it possible to purchase new homes with other people's money or creative financing? I know with owning rental properties, this investment requires 20% down. Is that even possible? 1,000%, Marvin, that is possible. Here's how I would structure it, because I did structure it this way many, many, many times in my life. Doesn't matter what strategy we're talking, any strategy works for what I'm about to say. You find people who have money, and there's a lot of them. There's literally millions of millionaires in America, millions of them. It's crazy. You find people who have money and you don't need a ton, like literally probably 40 grand would let you do a build to rent because you get a loan on the rest. They've got money. They have the ability to get a loan. You bring the deal. You found the lot that you're going to build on. You bring the deal. You do it together. They handle the financials. You handle the work. You split everything down the road 50-50. Easiest thing in the world. It doesn't have to be 50-50, but I always like to make everything 50-50 if I can. And yeah, they get cashed out at the end and they just own the property with you forever. Or you could work out a deal where it's like, hey, it's 50-50 until you get a 2x return on your money. And then we split it, 70-30. You can get complex with it if you wanted to. But I will tell you this, and this is the principle I want to share. There are far more people with money than people willing to do the work to find deals. Mm-hmm. So if you are good at finding the deals, and in this case, it would be vacant land. And if you're willing to do the work to actually make the thing happen, you will never have a problem finding money, ever. Like, money is the easy thing in today's market. Deals are the hard thing in today's market. And the great thing is, deal finding and working deals is a learnable skill. Like, you can just learn that. So anyway, the short answer is that. Anything else you want to add on that, Marvin? I know why you're here.
I mean, in terms of like vacant land, I was leaning more towards a building that's already constructed.
Sure.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's kind of the same difference. I just find that somewhere, and I just have to find a investor that is willing to finance me 50%. But let's say, what would be the price point? Let's say if it's 40K, the investor is willing to put down and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I say 40K, where that number came from in my head, this was really quick math, but I thought, okay, you have a $300,000 all-in build on a property, let's say, including the lot, you have 300K total all-in. You're probably looking at 20% down, so that's 60K, I guess. So I guess I was off on my math a little bit, but whatever. That's generally what I was saying, is they don't need the full amount. They don't need 300K. They need 20% down with a local bank, probably. I mean, maybe you're looking at 100. I mean, honestly, I just did a deal with a gentleman in First Deal. He's a friend of mine, so I won't do this with everybody. But a friend of mine who's in First Deal came to me and he said, hey, I want to build. I found a lot. There's a house on it. I want to tear down the house. I want to build up a fourplex.
Yeah.
but I need $175,000. Will you invest in this? And I was like, I don't know, show me the numbers. And he sent me the numbers and I sent it back and I said, it's not good enough. Like, I mean, the numbers were fine, but your presentation wasn't good enough. Can you rerun the numbers? Like re-present it to me in a better way. So he comes back to me. I send it again. I'm like, still not good. What happens here? What happens here? What happens here? Sends it back to me again. I say, okay, I like this. This makes sense. I don't want to be the only investor in it. I want you to go pitch this deal to 10 of my friends. So I sent him to a bunch of my friends that are in the 50 and said, here, pitch it to them. I got 2 of those guys to come in on as well. So I put in maybe 100 and the other guys put in the rest and we're doing it together. And I should get a really good return, like 20+% return on my money. And I have to do no work. He's doing all of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the best way to invest. Like, again, he found the deal. He's managing the rehab. He's taking care of everything. So it's super simple on me.
So
I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How do you find? So I'm from Hawaii, right?
Sure.
I'm into out of state investing, right? So how do I find these investors? Like,
Yeah.
Can you connect me with a network investors that can work with on these investment properties elsewhere? I mean, I don't know anyone personally that is investing right now.
I totally get that. So a couple thoughts, and I'm going to let Cam finish this one. He's way better at this than me. But I would say this: best.
You've raised $500 million.
Yeah, I have raised $500 million, but I cheated. I have a big social media. You're better at the just for people that you get to know. Anyway, here's what I was going to say: the best people to fund your deals are real estate investors, in my opinion. Now, other people might disagree with me on that, but I just think real estate investors get it. We understand what you're doing. So the question is, how many real estate investors do you know? And how do you 10x that or 100x that number? Like, if you know one real estate investor, you should know 100. What's that thing the guy said yesterday on the podcast of the 8 the categories?
A, B, C.
Yeah.
And you're trying to move everybody up to A. So and it works with anything. So if you're looking at investors, hey, make a list of every person in your contact list. And A is people I know that if I call them, they will give me money. And you might have 0 people in that. Yeah. B is, hey, these are family, friends. They like me a lot. There's potential that they will give me money sometime down the road. C is, hey, these are just friends, people that I know, acquaintances. I don't have a connection built up with them yet to where they would probably give me money. And your goal is to move B to A and C to B. And the only way that you do that is through connecting and building relationships and networking and picking up your phone and calling them. That's something that in a different, when I was really, really focused on acquisitions, every single day I would go on an hour, 2-hour walk and I would just call person after person after person after person and just have conversations.
You're not asking for money on those conversations. It's I hate the word networking. I'd rather just say friend building.
Yeah.
How do you build friends?
Yeah.
And how do you build rich friends? You go to where rich people hang out. What island are you on, Hawaii-wise?
I'm in Oahu currently.
Okay. So,
I do have family in Maui, though.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we're over on Maui. I was going to say, over on Hawaii, I know that there's at least 2 meetups that happen at least once a month. Yeah. I know that Indar has a thing. I know that there's...
I'm actually going to his event. I believe it's on
next week. Yeah, I'm speaking.
Are you really?
Yeah, I'll be there.
He didn't ask me to speak.
Yeah, he doesn't like you.
Yeah, he doesn't like me, clearly.
Are you going?
Yeah, I think I'm speaking at it. But I'm literally speaking and then hopping on a plane because Stetson and Andy have for the wedding. Are you going to be back for the wedding?
I'll be back for the wedding.
Yeah. So I'm speaking and then hopping on a plane. He doesn't know that yet. I've got to call him and tell him I've got to fly back. Cameron.
This is Cameron.
Yeah.
Cameron.
So
you'll be here on Saturday then.
Yeah. Yep. I'll look forward to meeting you. But hey, I got a thought on this because I think this is important. The 20, how do you find people? Yeah. So, because I created kind of a fund around that, and the whole purpose of this was I'm a Burr investor. I've been doing that right now with DSCR loans where they're at. You can't make numbers cash flow. It's really tough. Even with a Burr deal, you have to leave a lot of money tied up into it. And I was leaving 30, 40, 50 grand tied up into deals that were still Burr deals. They still had 60, 70 grand of equity on the backside, but they just wouldn't cash flow. And so I was thinking, how do I do that? And so I raised a bunch of money from people, and they essentially cover whatever that amount is that I have to leave tied up into a deal to hit a 1.2 or 1.25 DSCR ratio, they would leave that tied up into the deal. What I gave them was 100% of the cash flow, which is not a lot. It's only $150, $200 a month. So they get $200 a month, but then we're a 50-50 partner in that deal on the equity. And so like we have $70,000, $80,000 of equity that we're 50-50 partner, but I'm now able to buy as much real estate as I want without any money out of my own pocket. Whereas I was having to leave 40, 50 grand tied up into deal after deal after deal. I can only do so many of those until I'm out of money. And I didn't want that.
And how did you find this partner of yours?
So that goes to the investing side of things. So, and Brandon said this earlier, I'm such a firm believer of this. Money is actually not hard to find. When you can like put together a great pitch deck and show them, hey, this is going to be your return, and do that confidently. I think that's really important. So one of the things is like, you just have to learn as much as you can, because if you sit down and you're like, I'm going to build single family houses or build this, but I don't really know, like, just give me your money and I'll get you a return. They're not going to invest with you. But when you can put together a great deal of, hey, here's the numbers, here's why it makes sense, here's what you get out of it. Dude, people are in on that. People love to make money. And if you can show them, hey, this is a really not zero risk, but a very low risk way to make a 15 to 17% return on your money, dude, they're in. And so
if you have a good pitch, if you're confident, if you have experience, or you're somehow borrowing experience, people are in. It's not terribly hard, but you got to get good first. Like, again, there's no room in the market for mediocrity. So it's like, how do you make a world-class pitch deck? How do you pitch people correctly? How do you actually have a real solid deal? The numbers look good. And your first, I don't know how experienced you are in there, but your first couple deals, you might just have to go settle for being a partner in somebody else's deal who's way better. And you might get 0% or 2%, 10% of the deal. Who cares? But you got to build up the credibility and the knowledge, because you don't want to make mistakes on people's money. That's the biggest thing with raising capital. Is you don't want to make mistakes on their money. So anyway, hey man.
Right on.
To see you in person at some point.
But I'll see you on the 15th.
Yeah, see you next week, bro. Super cool.
All right. I love this question because this is a deal. A lot of people are. Did somebody just say something? I don't want to cut somebody off if they had a question that popped in. Okay. I love this question because a lot of people are dealing with this right now. We have 2 flips on the market since November. It's been slow. We're coming up on 90 days on the market. Holding costs are hurting us. We've thought about turning to rentals. The numbers don't really work. Any tips on getting more activity after sitting on the market so long? We've thought about delisting, relisting in the spring, or maybe go the rental route. I just want them off our hands at this point. Very common. It is the worst flipping sales market I've seen. I mean, you've said this. It's really,
I 100% could have wrote this question.
Yeah,
it wasn't me, but
it's a rough time. I'll give you my thoughts, and I'd love to know Cam's thoughts because they're probably way better than mine. My thought would be, one, it is more important to get them sold than to make a profit. So you get the experience, you can move on. So I wouldn't hold, there's a logical fallacy of like the sunk cost fallacy, right? It's like, I already put so much time into it, I better just put more in, or I already put so much money into it, I better hang on longer. Where like it may not get better. So what I'm saying there is I don't want you to lose money, but at some level it's like, okay, fine, you just dump them from what you can. I mean, price solves everything at some level. I would look at the deal and say, why is it not selling? Like, is it real? Like, not even you look at the deal. Have somebody else who's just kind of very brutally honest look at the deal and say like, hey, you just didn't do that good of a job on the rehab, or hey, your paint color kind of sucks. It could be that. It's really got to be good enough. So maybe it's that. I doubt it. It could be the market's slow and you just got to wait it out. It could be you drop the price until you do get it sold. But the last thing I'll say, and then I'll ask Cam, but is the rental doesn't really work. I would throw it at one of the cash flow strategies that we put in that ebook that I talked about, where it's like, and by the way, if you're watching this in the future and you want that, you don't have the chat room, just go to my Instagram and type in the word fringe and the DM to me, FRINGE, and it'll automatically send it to you. But I would look at one of those. So for example, can you take those and then turn them into midterm rentals? Spend $5,000 furnishing them, put them up on Furnish Finder to rent them out to traveling nurses. I'm not saying you can, but could you? Could you Airbnb it? Could you do the pad split model? There might be a cash flow strategy that will get you out of those deals in terms of cash flow to where you can get refinanced, get it out, and move on with your life. Cam?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is like I do agree with Brandon. there potentially is a way that it could work, but then getting financing, bank financing, if you're in hard money, getting refinance out of that, paying back the hard money lender, that's all really tough. When it comes to a house that's sitting on the market, because believe me, the last 6 months have been rough for us too. So you're not alone in this. One, everybody that's flipping houses is having this happen right now. You're not alone in this. Two, I would talk with your agent, make sure that they're a great agent, get as much feedback as you can from the showings that you've had already. So if she's not collecting feedback or he's not collecting feedback, have them call every single person that walked the house. What'd you like about it? What didn't you like about it? What could we change? So then you have some feedback on that. Maybe it's, hey, everybody's saying that it's just listed too high. And then you do have to drop the price. Maybe everybody's saying, hey, we loved it, but there was the windows aren't done, and we want a house with new windows. And then, like, okay, we can go spend $6,000 to replace the windows and potentially sell it. I do love the delisting and relisting strategy just because it gives new life to that listing. And so it is 30 days. I think they made that across the nation. It used to be longer than that, or there's different markets that it had different days, but I think it's across the nation. It's 30 days. What I love about that is that it does give new life to it. Over those 30 days, you could get inside of it and you could do those things like having your agent call everybody that's walked it. You could do some of those things that make it look more presentable when people walk it. Another thing that I would talk through is it staged? Stage houses sell for more and quicker than houses that aren't staged. So I would do all of your due diligence in figuring out, why is this house not selling? And then potentially delist it, list in 30 days. And my last thought is this, Brandon kind of already alluded to it. I don't know what your guys' exact strategy is, but I think sometimes taking a loss and getting that mental burden off of your shoulders, it is a better idea than holding on and praying for a profit or saying, oh, we're going to try and rent this for a year, and then in a year we're going to relist and hopefully we can recapture our money. Like that $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 loss, but the mental capacity that you're going to have to go do more of this is going to make you way more than that $20,000. I promise you that. And so we've been in the same situation where we've had to dump properties for a loss before, but I know that getting those out of my mental space is going to make me more money in the future. So I think that's also important to think through when you're thinking of what strategy we do.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, if it's not going to ruin you, which I know 10, 15, 20,000, whatever it is a lot of money, but if it's not going to ruin you, I think you get rid of that thing and then you just keep going.
I like it. Tim Ferriss, when I interviewed Tim Ferriss when I was on the Bigger Pockets podcast, he wrote the 4-Hour Workweek. He said a quote that I still say to myself all the time. I literally say this almost every day to myself in some way. He said, you don't have to make money in the same way you lost it. And the way I translate that, and the reason I say it to myself all the time is like, sometimes you just have bad deals, or sometimes something doesn't work out and you lose money on a deal, or you lose whatever. You don't have to fight through that same deal to make that worth it, right? Sometimes you just got to cut your losses, but take the mental energy and make your money somewhere else. And so I think about that, quite a bit. So anyway, somebody asked a question about, do we have, where did it go? Anyway, I don't know where it went, but basically the gist was, is there a place within the Better Life tribe or within like First Deal or in my ecosystem, you could call it, where like private lenders, are like, hey, I'll lend your deals? The short answer is no. And there are some communities that claim that they have that, and maybe we'll try to build it, but it just doesn't really work that way, if that makes sense, because private lending is relationship based. It's not like, hey, there's a group of 10 people that said they'll just fund your deal. And so somebody's like, yeah, I got a deal. And they're like, all right, I'll fund it. I mean, maybe, I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's like skirting the real work. Like the shortcut is to just build relationship with people every single day for years on end. And you'll have dozens of people that will fund you. I would not just go on the Better Life tribe and say, hey, I got a deal. Who wants to fund it? One, that'd just be spammy and it just looks bad. And then people start looking down on you in the community. But also, like, who's going to, like, would you do that if some random person you've never met before was like, hey, who wants to fund this random deal? I don't know who you are. I wouldn't do it. The only people I fund, and I fund a decent number of people here and there, it's people that I know in real life. They've come to my masterminds. They've been in groups I've done. They've been part of my life for a long time. Like, literally, I'm funding a giant deal for Cam right now, the house you live in.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like,
you are.
Like, a significant loan. Like, why? Because I know, like, and trust Cam, and I know that my money is good invested there. And so, just keep that in mind. Like, I'm not saying you can't do it and we won't someday have an avenue for it. But we do a thing called Tribe Talk. It's at the Better Life Tribe. We do it every single month. It's really cool. It's speed dating, but for real estate networking. And so you get on this call and you just have 5 minutes to talk to people, and it randomly puts you with a person and you just talk for 5 minutes. And some of the conversations I've had have been amazing. Like, I'm like, this person is legit and they're super cool, and I want to follow up with them and get their number and talk to them later. Other people are like, yeah, you're a little strange, but it's always good. Like, it's always a good time. People have done deals with people they've met on Tribe Talk. That has happened, and it'll continue to happen. Because it's just like, but if you go on Tribe Talk and be like, hey, nice to meet you, I got a deal, you want to fund it? It's like going to the bar and there's a girl sitting in the counter and you're like, hey, you're pretty, you want to get married? Like, it's just creepy, right? It's just creepy. Don't be creepy. Build actual friendships. And if you can use a thing like Tribe Talk, you come to the REI Summit, you meet people, you connect with people. By the way, who's coming to the REI Summit? Any have their tickets yet? REISummit2025.com. You can get your ticket. Prices go up like every week. And so we do that on purpose because otherwise people wait till the last minute. Don't wait till the last minute. You speaking?
I don't think Taro wants me to.
I'm going to make you speak.
I would love to.
I'm sure you will. We'll make Taro make you speak. Actually, his goal it was to have very few of the speakers from last year this year. So that way people get a change. But I mean, you're on the podcast. We'll probably just do a live podcast if nothing else. All right. 3 pivot books that changed your life. Aaron asked that question. I'm going to give you 4 because I'm a rebel. Number 1, Rich Dad, Poor Dad obviously affected my life in a dramatic way. I would say, the one thing for sure affected me on productivity and all that. There's a book called 80-20 Sales and Marketing that helped me a lot in thinking about virtual assistants and how I spend my time. The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry from John Mark Comer affected how I live my life and in the peace of how I go through my day. I know that's 4. I'm going to give a couple more real estate related ones. Oh, shoot, what's it called? The ABCs of Real Estate Investing from Ken McElroy is a great overview of just like how multifamily works.
Forget about Red Rising.
And Red Rising.
Yeah.
Red Rising. Has anybody read that? Y'all got to read Red Rising. It is so good. I know Cam's read it. I know Megan's read it. It's an amazing book. It's a fiction book, but it's the best book on leadership and the entrepreneurial journey you'll ever read.
Yeah, I guess it is.
It is the entrepreneurial journey. The number of times that Darrow gets into a near-death experience and you're like, there's no way he's going to get out of this. And then he gets out of it. And you're like, and you see him lead from the back is what's beautiful in that book. He leads from the back, meaning like, I don't know. It's like you're not just out, like he just constantly, anyway, I don't even go on it. I love the book. It's an amazing book. Read the book, Red Rising. You can buy it at Target. It's just a good fiction book.
Yeah.
It did probably affect my life. Okay, more questions. Chris said, have you seen anybody, books for you.
Books for me, I'm going to go Good to Great.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite, just like what does it look like to become a level 5 leader? I'm going to go, there's a book, it's called The Happiness Advantage. I love that book.
That's a great book.
And I think it's so important of just being joyful and building your life around that and leading from a place of joy and happiness, and your employees or the people that are working for you, like they are going to work better and harder if they are happy. And it's how I want to live my life. And then the third book, let's throw in, so there's this guy, he passed away not that long ago. He wrote a book. It's called The Furious Longing of God. It's the same guy who wrote the Ragamuffin Gospel. What's his name? Brennan Manning.
Dude,
yes.
Brennan Manning also wrote The Signature of Jesus, and that book is legit too. Brennan Manning's the
Brennan
man.
Manning he's
Was the man.
priest. Yeah, he insane story, but it's just it's a really great book. That one I read when I was in a dark season of my life when I was in my early 20s, and it was life-changing for me. So that was a more
Very cool, man.
Spiritual, not real estate.
Let me fire that same question to everybody here in this on this live Zoom right now. What is your pivot book? Throw in a book or two that's been one of yours. I'm going to read off a bunch of them just so people listening to this in the future can learn from you guys. Let's see. A couple more questions. I like this one. If you've done deals in the distant past, should you join First Deal or Better Life Tribe? That's a great question. I would say First Deal, obviously we teach people how to get their first deal. But really what we're doing is we're teaching the fundamentals. So if you need the fundamentals again, and a lot of us do, then join First Deal. And then once you've got the rhythm down, you got the disciplines nailed, which we teach very specifically. You get your decisions, you learn how to get deal flow, you learn how to get your dollars figured out, the disciplines of like doing the work every single day. Once you do that, you're going to buy a deal. In fact, we guarantee it within First Deal. You're going to buy something. Then graduate and go over to the Better Life Tribe where you're going to hang out with millionaires. Like the average, hey, Matt Buck, if you're still on here, will you throw in the chat? Because I don't want to misquote it. But what were some of those stats around like, what's the average number of units in the tribe? What's the average net worth? It's remarkably higher than I thought it would be. So check that out. But yeah, if you want to throw that in there, I'll read it in a second. But I'm going to read off a couple books while we're waiting. Oh yeah, right there. I saw it. Average is 33 doors and $4.1 million net worth. Yeah, I think that's what I remember too. It was like a $4 million net worth. So the tribe is like legit real estate investors who have money. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Like we're a tribe of 1,000 people almost, of millionaires that are successful. So, all right. Martin said The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. I absolutely love that book. That was a pivot book for me as well. I love that you said that, Martin. In fact, there was a time where I was like every day, I think it was for a month or two, I would read one of the Success Principles. There's a lot of them. So
really
I love that one.
I've never read that.
Chuck Yeager's The Right Stuff. I've not read that one. 12 Rules of Life, Jordan Peterson. That was a good one. The Bible. Oh, hands down. How to Think and Grow Rich, of course. Yeah, definitely. Relentless by Tim Grover. That was so good. Crushing It from my partner, Brian Murray. Oh, that was
his first one, wasn't it?
Yeah, he crushed it on that one.
Yeah.
The Artist's Way. That's one I haven't seen recommended very often. I just read that one recently. That one is good, Jackie. Are you an artist? Are you like a writer or something? I would love to know more about that. I love writing books. Like Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird is one of my all-time favorite books. If you guys have any interest in writing, read Bird by Bird from Anne Lamott. That's so good. That's
Bird by Bird.
Bird by Bird. Even if you don't care about writing, read Bird by Bird and you will be a writer. You'll get done with that and you'll be like, yeah, I'm going to write a novel. Like, it's just like, so good. Extreme Ownership, Jocko Willink. Of course, I love that one. Let's do this question here. Joe said, Cam, for a flip, can you give us a quick step-by-step when you have gotten the call from a seller on how you approach the appointment when you arrive at their home? Would love details on like, how do you introduce yourself? How do you do the exterior first, interior? Where do you end the appointment? Go over numbers. When do you negotiate stuff? Any of those details? Great question.
Great question. I don't know how to answer this quickly though. Yeah. So, I mean, from the time the call comes in, we're setting the stage for me going on the appointment, which not anymore because I'm in Maui. But when I was there and I was doing multiple appointments every single day, we're setting the stage for me to get there. We're not when they call in, we're not asking them a bunch of questions. Like the goal is get me in the house because I know once I'm there that I can do a better job than the lead manager of asking the right questions, figuring out the right things. One of the biggest things that I think people really, really struggle with is they always want to know how much do you want for your house? And that's one of the first things that that some people will teach you to ask when somebody calls in. It's like, hey, what do you want for your house? We do not do that because you're setting a price anchor that you don't want to set. So you get to the house. I'm going to take you through this really quick.
Go ahead, rant.
Yeah. Do you want me to? Okay. Sorry.
We'll put this on YouTube.
Yeah. Okay. So you get to the house. First thing you do is introduce yourself. I talk a lot, and you guys can probably go watch on a podcast or whatever about the DISC assessment, reading people based upon that. And one of the things that I talk about a lot is, hey, you want to negotiate with people the way that they want to be negotiated with. I think it's really important to realize that you are not the most important person in the room. It is always the potential seller that's the most important person in the room. And so even though I'm charismatic and loud and obnoxious, when I'm showing up to a house, I might meet somebody that's an introvert. And so I'm not being that person that's charismatic, loud, and obnoxious and goes for the bro hug or something like that. I'm using some emotional intelligence of how to work with them. But I'm saying, hey, I'm setting the stage. Hey, do you mind if I tell you how this goes? And I will lay it out for him. Say, hey, I'm gonna walk your house. I'm gonna take some pictures. I'm not gonna put them anywhere on the internet. They just stay on my phone. They help me come up with the rehab budget. Then I'm gonna step out of my car. I'm gonna put together some numbers. I'm gonna come back in and I'm going to let you know where I'm at. Does that sound good to you? And you always want to ask these questions. Is that okay with you? Does that sound good with you? Because you're just reaffirming multiple times, and they're saying yes multiple times throughout it. And there's something about telling them what's about to happen that immediately puts them at ease versus like, oh, there's just a random guy walking through my house taking pictures. So that's the very first thing. As you're walking the house, you're taking pictures, you're also having conversation. And again, this is emotional intelligence. How does that person want to be talked to? But you're having conversation. You walk the house, you take the pictures, I step out to my car, I put together numbers. Basically, I've already ran my ARV, but I might recheck it because of the house. And I saw some things in there that I wanted to think through. I'm putting together a rehab budget. I'm coming up with my offer. Then I'm going back into the house, and this is the negotiation process is the most important part. You're going to go back into the house and you're going to try and uncover pain points. And you probably were doing this as you were walking the house as well. But pain points are going to be like, why does this person want to move? And sometimes they're incredibly obvious, where the house is distressed. They're running out of money. They don't have money to live there. There's animal feces all over the floor. Something crazy happened. And so there, a lot of times with that, there's a very, very obvious reason why the house is why they need to sell. And so I like to ask in that scenario, hey, I see there's a lot of things going on, but I have a question for you. Why wouldn't you want to sell this house? Because that uncovers pain points. Like there's reasons that they need to sell it, but there's always going to be a reason why they wouldn't sell it. And so and they're going to say, well, this is the house that I was born in. I inherited from my parents, yada, yada, yada. They're going to give you reasons that now you have to figure out how to solve. On the exact opposite side of things, you'll walk houses sometimes where everything seems great and you're like, I don't know why this person wants to sell this off the market. And you ask the exact opposite question. We're like, hey, this house is really nice. Like, and it's a good condition and doesn't seem like you're in a rush. So like, why would you want to sell? Because a lot of times people don't open up with that, and you have to do a good job at uncovering that. And that, why wouldn't you or why would you, immediately opens up where if it's a nice house and you just ask, why would you, they're going to say something like, well, my son, this just happened to me. And so from a conversation I had with the seller, my son just got a baseball scholarship down in Tennessee. And so I'm going to buy a house down there so I can go to all of his baseball games, and I need to sell it quickly. And so you're going to like, how do I solve this person's problems? And so you're going to know that you're going to, basically tell them how you can solve those problems. Well, like, hey, that's perfect. You know what? I'm can buy your house, and not only that, but I'll pay for your movers down to Tennessee. Or hey, I understand that this is a really special house to you, and I just want to tell you a little bit about my company, where we're a company that is really, really what would I say? Precise, not precise isn't the right word, but we want to take care of this house. We want to honor this house. We want to honor this legacy that your family has built. And so just using that verbiage just to solve their problems, make them feel more comfortable with it. Then it comes time for the offer. And again, I am never going to make an offer, and I'm never going to ask them what they want. I am going to throw out typically a really low number, and I'm going to blame it on somebody else. And so if I'm walking Brandon's house, and because I just want to see what we're working with. If I'm walking Brandon's house, and I come up with my numbers, they're around $200,000. I'm not going to ask him what he wants for it. I'm going to say, hey, Brandon, I'm looking at this house. I know a lot of other investors in the area, and honestly, like I think a lot of other investors would be around 180 on this house. And I'm going to sit there and I'm going to wait till he responds to me in some way, shape, or form.
That's ridiculous.
He could cuss me out. He could say, that's ridiculous. He's like, I can't go that low, but I could be here. But he's going to then set a more realistic price anchor versus, hey, what do you want for the house? And he's going to say $300,000. And so I'm going to throw that out there, wait for him to respond, and then I'm going to come in with my offer. And then I don't want to take up too much more time, but there's a lot of tips around, even when you throw out your offer. If they want more, what does that look like? Well, hey, let me go call my partner, make sure that I can do it. I think there's something that's really important about getting them agreeable on a higher price, where if you're at 190 and they're at 195, like if I go call my partner, will you say yes at 195? Because a lot of times you'll do that and they'll go, I actually want 200. And then the last thing that I would say is there's going to be a lot of rebuttals from them. And so learning how to, or objections, I guess would be the better way to say it, learning how to solve those objections. And usually that has to do with a personal story of something that you've encountered in the past of like, hey, somebody else offered one way higher than you, but it might not be a good buyer, and telling them a personal story why going with the iBuyer doesn't always work. And then exclusivity is also really important. And so I use exclusivity all the time where I'm at 200 with Brandon. He kind of wants it, but he wants to think about it, and he's not signing that contract. I would say something like, man, I only have a certain amount of capital that I can spend. I really, really want this house, but I'm also walking 10 houses over the next 3 days. And my worry is that I put some of those other houses under contract and you call me and I can't buy yours anymore. And so I need an answer as quickly as possible. And that gets his wheels turning and kind of puts things into motion for him to accept that contract. So really, really long answer. I could talk about that for 2 hours and give you way more detail about each step and what that looks like, but don't have the time right now.
Good answer, man.
Sorry, that was long.
All right. Matt Buck, I did make Caleb the co-host, so you can jump if you need to do another meeting. I know we're way over. Do you have to go? Yeah, you can go. Get out of here.
Okay.
I'm just going to go over.
You're gonna
talking, yeah.
Oh, guys, thank you so much for letting me be on. It was a blast. See you all.
Yeah, you got Deal Flow? Deal Flow?
Yeah, I got a meeting before that. Deal Flow's not till like...
All right. If anybody wants to buy 100 houses a year, join Cam's Deal Flow. DealFlowRealEstate.com.
Deal Flow Real Estate!
All right. Let's see. A couple more book shout outs, and then we'll do some more questions. If you guys want to hang out still longer. Let's see. The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. Great one, Brian. The Wealthy Gardener, Jake said. I love that book. Millionaire Next Door, Brian suggested. Somebody asked, what was the Brandon Manning? It's Brennan, B-R-E-N-N-A-N, I think. Brennan Manning. He's a Christian or Catholic priest. Wrote some really good books. I've read a couple of them and they've always been phenomenal. I love this question. I'll do some more book recommendations. This one is from Joseph. I have a $10,000 a month pure cash flow goal for this year. If you guys had to start all over tomorrow, how would you go about accomplishing that? Like Undercover Billionaire. So before I answer that question, I will say I did an entire hour-long presentation on that exact title. It was literally how to get to $10,000 a month in pure cash flow. I did that for the last month's wealth workshop for the Better Life Tribe, and First Deal was invited. Whenever I do something for the tribe, I try to bring in the First Deal people because they can learn as well. But that was you can watch the replay of that one if you're in either group. I spent an hour on that. Let me give you the 1-minute version. If I wanted $10,000 a month in pure cash flow, starting with zero, how would I accomplish that in 1 year? I would have to choose a high cash flow strategy that would likely be assisted living is probably the highest cash flow strategy for minimum, lowest amount of money, highest amount of cash flow, but you're not going to do that in a year. If I had 3-year goal, to get 10K, I'd probably do assisted living. Let's rule that out. I'd probably do pad split, like I said earlier. It's complicated, but it's one of the highest cash flow strategies. Or midterm rentals can be really good too, depending on the area. Let's just go with co-living, pad split for a minute. Average pad split, minimum I would accept on cash flow would be $1,000 a month, minimum, with no money out of pocket. I want to BRRRR it, which is the buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat strategy. I want minimum $1,000 a month in cash flow, which means I would need 10 of them by the end of the year. That's like one a month. I would have to probably partner with people and give away 50% of the profits in order to make that happen, right? Or, if I didn't have a lot of cash, if I had no money and I had to do it, I'd have to actually buy 20 of them. Does that make sense? So half of them, the cash flow would go to the partner. If I had the money, I could just buy 10. So that's what I would do. Then I would reverse engineer that and say, okay, well, what do I got to do to buy 10 pad splits or 20 pad splits? Well, I'm going to make a lot of offers. I'm going to pick a market or two. I'm going to have to really drill in on the strategy. I'm going to have to build that funnel, and then I would build that funnel and I would work backwards and I would get it. I would probably run EOS, which is the Entrepreneur Operating System, which is something from Gino Wickman in the book Traction. I would run that as an organizational structure for my company. To be able to do that, I'd probably bring on a part-time VA to help me or a full-time VA to help me do the work. And I would just do the work. Every day I'd work for 2 hours a day. There's 3 things that it takes to succeed in life, right? There's consistency, persistence, and intensity. I'll say that again. Consistency, meaning you do it every single day or regularly. Persistence, you do it for a long time and don't quit. And then intensity, you do it at a level that's going to produce the results you want. And you can tweak those dials as needed. Like if you're really consistent with something, you don't have to be that intense. Or like if I just move the ball down the field 5 yards every day, I'm going to score a touchdown eventually. But if I can throw the ball 50 yards a day, now I got intensity and I've got consistency. But if I give up after 3 days, I'm not going to, what's my life going to be? It's not going to be much. So I want all three. I want to continually level those up. But if I had to pick one, consistency is probably most important. And then don't give up on that consistency and then add the intensity in. And you're going to achieve it. $10,000 a month in 1 year, starting from zero, is not an impossible goal. So you have to also, maybe this is the first step, you have to know that it's possible. You have to believe in your heart and know that it is possible. If you set a goal of, I want $10,000 a month in cash flow by the time I hit 50 years old and you're 30, yeah, you'll get it in 20 years, but you're going to optimize for a 20-year plan. If you said, I got to get that this year, your brain's going to work differently. You're going to think differently. You're going to strategize differently, and you're going to come up with a plan that might get you there. Now, you might not. You might get halfway there. It's a whole lot better than getting 2% of the way there, right? This is a classic Elon Musk quote. If you he says, stop. He's like, what was the quote? Now I'm going to butcher it. It's like, take your 5-year goal or your 10-year goal and ask yourself, how do I get it done in 6 months? You might not hit the goal, but you'll be way further along than you would otherwise. And so I love that concept of like, it forces you to think differently, think laterally. Great book on this topic is called 10X is Easier Than 2X. Anybody read that one? Super good. Dr. Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan wrote that one. Really good. 10X is easier than 2X. You could also read Grant Cardone's The 10X Rule. Similar principle. Both good books. But yeah, you could totally do it by the end of the year. So that's what I would do. I'd pad split the thing. I would get 1,000. I'd probably say, no, I want $2,000 a month. And then I'd buy 10 of them and I'd bring in a partner to fund all of that. Or I'd raise a fund from 10 different people so it diversifies it a little bit. And then I'd go and buy them. It wouldn't be that hard. That sounds crazy, but it would not be that hard. All right. Let's see. Joseph said, what are your thoughts on Section 8 investing? I like Section 8 investing a lot in certain markets. It doesn't always work everywhere. But here's what I love about Section 8. Section 8, which isn't even called Section 8 anymore, but we all still call it that. Section 8 pays based on bedroom count. Now, why does that matter? Because you can buy a house that's 3-bedroom, add 4 more bedrooms to it, and have 7 bedrooms that rent out for $4,000 or $5,000 a month, where you could only get $2,000 a month originally, and the government's paying the money. So like, not only do you get more rent, but you get more rent that's guaranteed. That's a win-win-win. Now, are you dealing with people that might be a little more difficult to manage? Yeah. Choose your hard, right? Like I say that all the time. Like just pick your hard. Section 8 is hard. So is building to rent. So is pad split. So is building an ADU in your backyard. It is all hard, all of it. Especially when you first get started. But that's where the money's at. If it was easy, everyone would do it. So yeah, I would try that. Let's see. Yeah, Aaron said, is that Cam Cathcart from episode 8 of The Better Life? It is. And he's now actually co-host of the podcast. So yeah, I ended up bringing him on like full-time to actually, not full-time employment, but full-time on the podcast. So let's see. Let's do a few more. Yeah, Be Your Future Self, also by Dr. Ben Hardy, is a wonderful book as well. Same guy that wrote 10X is Easier Than 2X. Be Your Future Self Now. A lot of what the kind of goal setting around the Better Life Tribe came from reading that book. All right, Michelle put a huge list of books. I'm going to read them all because I love all these books. The War of Art, Stephen Pressfield. Oh, Be Still My Heart. I love that book. Sadly, Stephen Pressfield lost his house in the fires in California just the other day, which is terrible. I love Stephen Pressfield. He came and taught to the Better Life Tribe. We sent a copy of his book to everybody. The War of Art is one of the most transformable books I've ever read, transformational books. Your Best Year Ever, I think that's Michael Hyatt. Buy Back Your Time, Dan Martell. Oh, so good. Profit First, Mike Michalowicz. Love that book. Rocket Fuel, also by Gino Wickman. Amazing book. Clockwork by Mike Michalowicz. Awesome book. You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar. I've not heard of that one. Wow, I love new books. What the Heck is EOS? Kind of teaches how to use that. Scrum Indistractable. Is that near something like that? Interviewed him on Bigger Pockets, I think. Miracle Morning. Yeah, that was a game changer for me as well. Miracle Morning from Hal Elrod, also a guest on the podcast. Leaders Eat Last. I've not read that one. E-Myth Revisited. Game-changing book for me. That was a massive pivot book. E-Myth Revisited from Michael Gerber. The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. I've not read that one. 12 Rules for Life. Deep Work from Cal Newport. Cal Newport. Everything Cal Newport has ever written, at least since he started writing personal development books and business books, has changed my life in a dramatic way. I mean, Deep Work was one of the greatest books I've ever read. So Good They Can't Ignore You, one of the greatest books I've ever read. Digital Minimalism, one of the greatest books I've ever read. Like, out of my top 20 books, I bet 4 of them are Cal Newport. I love Cal Newport. With an obsession that's probably unhealthy. As a Man Thinketh, super good. That one is a great one. You can get that one. And then Cash Flow Quadrant, that also huge impact on my life. Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow Quadrant. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Let's see. What's the best way to raise $1 million equity cash for flipping properties? I would probably... it depends a little bit, but let me just say this. Easiest way to raise $1 million, or the best way to raise $1 million to go flip properties is not to offer debt, but to offer equity, which I think you're alluding to here. What that means is you're not asking for a loan from a bunch of people. You're partnering with a bunch of people. I would make it really favorable for them. I would get really professional in how you present your deals and how you pitch them. I would make sure your numbers are dialed so good that you're not going to lose people's money. I would then network like a crazy person, go to every conference, build your database, follow up with people, probably put it all into, it's a $1 million fund. And then you go use that. You're going to need a team, probably even a small team, a couple people to help with the administration of the fund. And you're going to need some contractor managers and all that stuff. But and personally, I would rather raise 50 grand from 20 people than $1 million from one person. This is a very subtle thing I don't really talk about very often, but think about this. If you can raise 50 grand from 20 people, that's $1 million. If you can raise even 25 grand from 40 people, I would rather you do that. Now, that's way more work, right? Like, why would I say that? Because if you got 25 grand from 40 people, you now have 40 people, if you do a good job, that are going to give you 100 grand next time. You're actually raising $4 million. Is that the math right? It's like you have 40 people that probably have 100 grand, but you're only asking for 25. 25 is an easy ask. I would build my list of private lenders that way. And I'd do a fund with 40 people putting 25 grand to pop in or whatever. Does that make sense? Versus you do the $1 million, fine. You get one guy and then he turns you down later and you're like, oh shoot, I don't have anybody else. So in the beginning, you need to build that list. You need to go wide, I think. That's what I would do. Let's see. Joshua said, we have a lot of properties in our market that would be easy to convert to a pad split. We also don't have occupancy limits in our area. That's awesome. However, pad split isn't here yet, and our property PM has zero interest in the model. What's the best way to manage something like that without the support of pad split? It's something I've spent a lot of time thinking about. It's a great question, Joshua. If you don't mind sharing, where is that market? I'm just curious. 2, pad split is moving quickly, and I have a little pull over there. Maybe I could try to encourage them to look at that market next. I just had the CEO of Pad Split on my podcast, and so he's a buddy now of mine. Hour west of Seattle, Kitsap County. Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. That is a great market. But you know what? You don't need Pad Split, I suppose. What they do is they help fill it, which you could build systems around, and they help deal with like the top line. They don't actually manage. They just deal with like the annoying stuff, and then you deal with the bigger, just like Airbnb. Airbnb doesn't manage it, right? You're still in charge. But they deal with the annoying stuff. So I would build the systems around that. So what I mean by that is like, okay, well, how do we fill a home? Well, we're going to advertise on Facebook Marketplace. We're going to put it on Craigslist. We're going to put signs at all the colleges, blah, blah, blah. Now you got a checklist. You got a system. You get a part-time assistant to do that. Now you got one system. Next, I got to do a system for how to show the place. Okay, well, you build that system. I got to have a system for this, for this, for this. And by talking to other people who are doing co-living, it's a popular strategy. You're going to find out those systems. And I would just become so focused on system building that you could do it without Pad Split. But I'm going to do mine with Pad Split because I don't want to build all the systems. I'd rather just use their systems. It's way easier and they don't charge that much money to do it. My time is not best building systems to manage a co-living. My time is best spent finding more properties for co-living. And I think yours as well. So if you can do it locally in your area with Pad Split, great. But they're moving across the country quickly. All right. Is there any pitch deck templates in our tools for multifamily investing? There's not a template per se, but I walk through in that video. I actually walk through how I pitch deals, and I show you kind of the open door capital pitch deck. The reason I don't want a template, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but here's my fear: is I go put a template out there, and people are just going to copy my template, do exactly it, and then like they're not thinking. Like it's like they're not thinking. They're just filling in numbers. Does that make sense? Like I want you to go through the pain of building a pitch deck. Like that's part of the process of like learning how to pitch a deal, like going through the pain of building a pitch deck. So like I'd rather teach you how psychologically I pitch a deal, which is what that call is. And Caleb just put the link into the chat area. I'd rather psychologically explain how this works and then make you actually do the work. But I understand. Maybe I'll do a pitch a template at some point. All right. Well, oh yeah, Jackie said there's a co-living group on Thursdays in the Better Life Tribe that meets at noon with Miller McSwain. So he is part of the Better Life Tribe. He's actually writing a book on co-living right now. And we have a group of people that meet about that. It's actually one thing the Better Life Tribe is going to move into, and I don't want to reveal too much of the future, but we are going to lean heavier into what we're calling tracks. This is kind of the first time I've talked about this publicly, but we're going to start moving towards the idea of tracks. So we're going to give our members of the tribe more avenues to connect on the cash flow strategies that you are trying to do to reach that 10, 20, 30, 50, $100,000 a month of cash flow. So there'll be, rent by the room or co-living tracks, Airbnb, midterm rentals, maybe Section 8, etc. So you can get together with track leaders who are really good at that thing, like Miller. And I think that's going to be a game changer. So that's something we're going to introduce in 2025 that I'm pretty excited about. So, all right. Well, Eric asked, where are the meetups in Maui? I'm going to make this more of a general principle. The first thing, if you're looking for a meetup, is look for Facebook groups. Now, there's spammy Facebook groups, but there's also good ones. Most meetups will have Facebook groups. And so you just look in your area for like Facebook groups in your area for real estate, and you'll find out when they meet, and then you can go and check them out. Maui's different. The only meetup that actually happens here in Maui, I don't think has a Facebook group. It's run by Mike Neubauer, Mike and Caroline Neubauer. So just reach out to Mike Neubauer. He's in the tribe. He's a good friend of mine. We're going to go play pickleball today, I think. And along with Cam. And we play pickleball every Wednesday at 4:30 if you're in Maui and you want to come out ever. Anybody here. Pickleball at Maui Sunset, 4:30 on Wednesdays. So let's see. Let me do one or two more. We've been an hour and a half, so I probably should get us all out of here at some point. Have you seen anyone I'll do a few more. Have you seen anyone killing it with Boxable? Not specifically with Boxable, but I've seen a lot of people killing it with ADUs, which is what Boxable is. I am a big fan of Boxable. I don't know if they're going to be the future. For those who don't know, Boxable is a company that builds the house in a factory, ships it to you, and in 1 hour, the house is constructed and operational. It's wild. They just like ship it in, move it there. It's not a mobile home. It's like a really well-built home. They're based out of Las Vegas, Nevada. A really cool company. It is going to change the game. Like this new like trend towards these build the house inside of a factory and then ship it out. Because you can get a pad split for like $50,000. Now there's like other costs as well, but and yeah, Elon owns a big chunk of Boxable. I think I agree. The price does go up with all the code work and you got to do the pad prep and all that stuff for sure. Yeah, I think Elon lives in a Boxable. But more important is just that trend of ADUs, I think is one of the most important trends in American real estate right now. Like what I mean by that is we have an affordability crisis in America. They're not building affordable housing anymore. No one is, because there's no incentive to do it. Nobody's building it. Affordable housing is already a problem. It's getting worse, and it's getting worse every single year. The solutions for that, I'm actually going to make a YouTube video on this shortly. The solution for affordable housing is multifaceted. Part of it is the pad split thing, rent by the room. Part of it is ADUs. Part of it is we've got to allow more zoning, smaller units, more micro apartments, all that. But one of those is, again, the ADU thing. If you want a fun adventure, go look at what ADUs are doing to San Diego right now. Now, there's a lot of pros and cons of what San Diego is doing, but San Diego basically allowed anybody to add an ADU but not just one. You can add as many as you want as long as you're not filling more than 50% of your lot. So if you have a 10,000 square foot lot in a residential neighborhood, you can add up to 5,000 square feet of housing. So if your house is 1,000 square feet, that means you now have 4,000 left over. You can therefore build 10 400 square foot houses. That's 4,000 square feet. You could have 10 little 4,000 or 400 square foot houses on one little tiny residential lot in your backyard. Now, the neighbors are like freaking out about it. But like San Diego is actually really smart because they have a massive affordability problem. So they're like, all right, let's go flood the market with these cheap little houses. So now normal people can afford to live in a little 400 square foot house. The homeowner can now afford to buy the $1 million house because they're going to rent out all these units in the backyard. Everybody wins except for grumpy neighbors. Parking's a problem, but Tesla automatic vehicles are going to solve that in the next 5 years, where nobody will own a car in 5 years from now, I think. So yeah, interesting stuff there. All right. Well, everyone. Yeah, good stuff. Last question of the day, because I like this one, and then we're going to get out of here. Devin said, how would you approach starting using social media in 2025? I'm on it, but never like to post, but I see its use. Where is social media going for you? I want to tie this into real estate investing. It's not just social media. Social media is the best way to get people to know, like, and trust you at scale. Why would we care about people knowing, liking, and trusting you? Because that's how you raise money. That's how you get deals. I mean, more money than deals, but that's how you get people, private lenders, etc. I've raised $500 million on social media. It really does work. I once had somebody say this. This is maybe a great explanation, and it's going to sound like I'm patting myself on the back here, and I promise I'm not trying to, but it's a great quote. A guy invested in Open Door Capital, gave us like $100,000, and he said, Brandon, the reason I invested in Open Door Capital is because of how you talk about your wife on Instagram. Like, what does that even mean? Like, I'm not talking real estate. He didn't say because of how you talk about buying duplexes. He didn't say, hey, I'm investing with you because of how good your beard looks. Like, he's like, I'm investing with you because of how you treat your wife and talk about your wife. In other words, he likes me and he trusts me because he's seen how I act on social media, which is a representation of real life. Whether or not it's manufactured or not, it still is a picture of how I actually am as a person. And I think some of you guys know me in real life, and I think you'd probably agree the way that I am on social media is the way that I'm in real life. Maybe I'm a little more exaggerated on social media, maybe because I'm like yelling into a camera, but it is me. And so people see that. So go back to the original question. What would I do to like grow on social media? How should you start? First of all, I'd pick one channel that you just like, that fits your personality and your vibe. I'm good on camera. I'm energetic. I got the beard. I'm good on camera. Therefore, I like Reels on Instagram and I like YouTube. You might be like, oh, I hate talking. I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm not going to improve on that. Therefore, maybe you're going to be better on like Facebook writing content. My friend Nathan Brooks is a great example of that. Nathan Brooks is one of my best friends. I love him. He's actually really good on camera, but he doesn't make almost no video. He just writes really thoughtful comments on Facebook or like posts on Facebook. Jay Scott does the same thing. Jay Scott, who wrote the book on flipping houses, is a good friend of mine. He just writes really well thought out things and he puts it on Facebook. I got friends that do that on LinkedIn. All of that. So yeah. Anyway, so like I'd pick the channel that fits with your personality. And don't just be like, well, I don't like talking on camera, so I'm not going to do it. Maybe you should talk on camera. It is like one of the best ways to get people to know, like, and trust you. So just because you're not currently good at it, maybe you can get good at it. I pick one channel, consistency, intensity, and persistence. Same thing. Consistency is most important, and then don't give up ever. And then intensity would be like how good a job are you going to do? For example, if you just go post once a week some crappy little like, listing picture of a property, no one's going to care. So like intensity is like being good. What is good? Rip off and duplicate, R&D. Just go and look what other people are doing on social media. Copy what I do. Don't steal what I do, but copy what I do. Like look at what kind of posts do well for me and then just do your own version of that. I literally scroll Instagram way too much in my life, but when I do, whenever I find a post that I'm like, oh, I like what they're doing there, I save it into a category that I call like a bookmark. I save it called post to mimic. And I have dozens, probably hundreds at this point of posts to mimic. And all I mean is like, oh, I like that logic of what they did there. And it could be like they walked into the camera frame and they set a really good hook. Like, there's 3 things I would never do as a real estate investor. Like, and maybe they said it like, hey, there's 3 things I'd never do in the kitchen. Like, and I'm like, oh, I like that hook. So I'll post to mimic. So I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm just trying to mimic what other people do. Like, just copy what other people do. Be consistent, be vulnerable. That's a huge one. I talk about my mistakes. I talk about my faith. I talk about my problems. We've got a lot of deals at Open Door Capital that are going really well. And we've got a few that are not going real well. I think we'll survive. We've got a plan, but they're not going well. It hurts. It's painful. We pause distributions. We got investors that are angry at us. I talk about that. How many of you ever heard me say that I'm self-conscious about the way I talk? I hate the way I talk. I've never listened to a podcast of myself. I've been podcasting for 10 years. I don't do it. I don't say that for sympathy. I say it because now every one of you is like, oh, that's real. Like, I don't like the way I talk either. Oh, and now we just made a connection, right? So I call that intentional authenticity. Write that phrase down, intentional authenticity. It means you're being intentional. You're purposely putting something out there, but that thing is still authentic. I'm just not hiding it. And so now you have a better connection with me because you know an insecurity that I have. I mean, I'm not going to go overboard here and be like, yeah, when I was 12, the bully picked on me and called me fat. Like, I don't have to tell you all my drama, but even though that was true, I probably do have a lot of trauma from that, but whatever. Be vulnerable, intentionally authentic. And then last thing I'll say about social media is when you're on social media, you're not telling your story. That's the biggest mistake I think people make on social media. They're telling their story. Look what I did. Look how cool I am. Look what I'm doing right now. What you want to do if you want to grow is you want to tell their story through your story. It's a subtle difference. And a great practice for this, in fact, I had a social media mastermind a few years ago. Megan here, who's on this call, was in it. Charged a bunch of people a bunch of money to come hang out with me a bunch and learn social media. But one of the things I made people do is like, or I encourage them to do is post a picture of their lunch and make it about the audience. Like, how would you post a picture of your lunch and make it about your audience? It's a good mental thought, like, right? Because like nobody cares about your lunch, but they care about other things. So let me give you an example of how I do that, just off the top of my head. For lunch yesterday, I had dried out steak. Like, I microwaved it in the microwave. It just didn't turn out very good. I might take a picture of that, post it, and instead of saying, I had dried out steak today, no one cares. I might say something like, today for lunch, I had steak that was totally dried out and not very good. And I was feeling really down about that. And I was irritated that my lunch wasn't very good. And then I remembered that there's 300 million people who didn't have lunch today because they didn't have the money for it. And many of those people won't last the week. And I realized how blessed I am to live in America and to have dried out meat. Okay, so what did I just do there? I made it about, like, not even about the people that didn't have the food. I made it about the listener or the reader of that post. They thought about it in their world, going, oh yeah, I should be more grateful too for the things that I have. Because sometimes I also get grumpy about things and I'm not experiencing gratitude. I should be more grateful. I'm going to be more grateful. And now all of a sudden, my picture of my lunch just changed somebody's day. It changed how they think, and it made their day better. So a big difference between, here's my lunch, it was dry, that sucks, that's me. And making it about the audience and about something bigger. So every post you put out there is like, is this benefiting me or is this benefiting my audience? And if you can find a way to always benefit your audience, and then continually improve your craft all the time, be consistent, persistent, and increase your intensity, social media, it works. And it's a long game. There's a misconception. I know I keep going on. I could talk about this for years. There's a misconception that social media, that people who have big social medias like mine, that at some point I just like hockey sticked, or at some point I just had a viral video and I got thousands of subscribers. That's true for some people. I've never had that. Like, I've never had a real viral video. Like, not really. I've had some clips of Dan Martell talking that did really well. That got a bunch of millions of views. But like, that was Dan Martell. It wasn't even me. It was like all Dan. If you look at my social media thing, my growth, it's almost a straight line. It's just up a little bit. It's like a slightly angled line over a 10-year period to get to where I am today. And so like, there's never a spike. There's never like some like magic pill. And the same is true for most real estate investing, right? Like your real estate, like it's usually not a magic pill. It's just the work, and you do the work and you do it for decades. And at some point you look back and you realize how far you've come and you're like, oh, dang, like I did it. I made it. I got financial freedom. Like I'm traveling the world with my family. I've got whatever, this cool business. But it happens slowly. So I got to get out of here. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate y'all. Thanks for hanging on for a full hour and a half for those who came here. Hey, do you want to know the fastest way to level up your real estate investing? Get your goals quicker? It's not watching some other YouTube video, though I'm sure you can learn there. It's not scrolling social media, though I hope you learn there. It's getting in the room with people who are actually doing real estate. And there's one room in 2025 that you cannot afford to miss, the REI Summit, June 1st through June 3rd in Austin, Texas. Now, this isn't your typical sit and take notes conference. The REI Summit is about walking away with real tactics and strategies that you can implement immediately, whether you're landing your first deal or you're scaling your portfolio to this next level. In fact, just like last year, every session begins with the word how to, because you're not there to be entertained. You're there to learn new tips, new strategies, new ideas, to meet new people, and to take those things back home with you and use them to build more wealth and passive income so you can live a better life. But here's the thing. Prices are going up, and we regularly are going to keep raising prices as we get closer to the event. So don't wait. Lock in your spot right now before it's too late. To register, go to reisummit2025.com or go to my Instagram, Beardy Brandon, shoot me a DM that just says Summit, SUMMIT, and I'll send you all the information. This event will be the game-changing event that you've been waiting for. I'll see you in Austin. And that, my friends, is the show. Thank you for tuning in. And hey, before you go, if you enjoyed this episode or if you just enjoy the show in general, please consider leaving us a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We really do value your feedback, and we read the comments. We make future decisions about topics and guests and everything else. Plus, it helps us reach more people, and the more reviews we get, the more people hear it and watch the show and share it, and it's awesome. Last but not least, please head over to social media. Consider befriending me, following me, subscribing to all that stuff at Better Life and my personal page at Beardy Brandon, especially over on Instagram, YouTube, and really everywhere else. So thank you again for listening. I'm honored that you would bring me along on your journey toward building wealth through real estate investing without losing your soul. Now, this show is about living a better life, but if you want my opinion on what it takes to live the best life ever, just go to abetterlife.com/best life to hear some of my views on life and spirituality. I think you'll like it. abetterlife.com/best life. With that said, thanks for listening to the show. We'll see you next week.